All right, guys, Casper Dennis here for Submission Radio. We are here with Matt Mitrione just after the Professional Fight Association press conference has concluded. Just kick things off, Matt. I got to ask you, you are no longer a UFC fighter. These guys only represent UFC fighters. What brings you here? What made you want to attend this press conference?
Well, I really just was interested in what he had to say for himself, or what they had to say for themselves. Hear their thoughts, hear why they only wanted to rep UFC guys, which, I mean, if that's their perspective, that's cool. I just want to see it. I want to see if I can get a feel for the person that's going to try to head this up, to see, like I said in the press conference, if they're Johnny-come-lately, if they're after the money grab, if they're, if they have a genuine interest, or if they just see like, hey, if we can make this thing happen, we can make a shit ton of money here. Because we're in the Wild West. If they contain the Wild West and they can help out with some stuff, then, hey, we're the first people to ever do that. Remember when you're voting salaries, blah, blah, blah. So it's just, I want to see his intent and see sincerity and integrity. That's what I was hoping to see.
Well, before we find out what you actually thought of it all, what's your thoughts on the fact that they are just going after the UFC first? Because a couple of people brought up during the press conference, why don't you start at a lower end, why don't you go World Series of Fighting, Bellator, you've got a precedent already, then do the UFC. What do you think about them actually choosing to go straight to the top and do the UFC first?
Well, I think that the Borris family is only does high-end everything, right? Like with Scott and Jeff, whatever else. So I would say that this is the Cadillac, right? So, I mean, if you're brash enough, confident enough to come after the Cadillac or the untamed stallion, why not do it? I mean, they have a pedigree to do it, right? So just kind of see if he can win the trust and faith and confidence of the fighters. That's it, really. I mean, and that's why I kind of brought up, like, what's the point of having warring factions right now? Like, that kind of seems counterproductive. Like, why not just, hey, look, man, let's work together right now. Let's get everybody on board with the same conversation. Let's have a couple conversations, conferences, whatever. Make sure we're on the same page and pitch everybody to get everybody to sign on. Not you with your faction and us with our faction that we're going to try to go after or manufacture or whatever else. Like, fucking bundle up, get everybody together, and once everybody signs the union cards, then let's have our, hey, look, now we can set off, hey, look, we'll put everybody up on their own pedestal and say, hey, who do you want to vote for? I think that makes the most sense, and that's why I try to get across that, but I got a little frustrated in the middle of it.
Well, you're obviously doing great things in Bellator. Do you sort of wish that you could sign a fighter card? And if you were in a position where you were in the UFC, would you sign a fighter card to be part of the PFA?
I would definitely sign a fighter card if I were in the UFC. I think it's important. And I think that everybody has to realize that there is a greater good. And not even that you have to sacrifice money or position or reputation or anything else. I think it's the evolution of the sport, man. The fact that we actually had media to actually have a conversation about a union, and this is like a sexy, and I'm worried about a Johnny-come-lately for a cash grab. That's a sexy thing, man. That's great that we've gotten the attention and to the point where that can be a sexy conversation and a hot button in sports. So that's great. The fact that the MLB PA and NFL PA and the NBA PA and NHL PA are saying our names, that's a big damn deal. So I mean, maybe I'm looking at like a dent in a peach and saying I don't want that damn peach, but it's still a peach, So it's the evolution of the game, and I think all of us would have to sign a union card. I don't understand why somebody would want the status quo when the status quo doesn't take care of us.
You left the UFC and now in Bellator. Do you feel like Bellator looks after its fighters a little bit better than the UFC? And are there improvements there in Bellator that the PFA can make?
I feel that there can be improvements everywhere, but I will tell you this much: genuinely, from the I think everybody knows me. I shoot as straight as I can. I'm in a honeymoon period with Bellator, and I'm having a great damn time at Bellator, and I've been treated fantastic. I have not heard other people talk bad about Bellator, about other situations, and I can only speak on me and say that I've been treated very well. I'm having a great time. I have a great amount of communication with the brass if I want to, or just the guy who's in the back, who's a camera guy. We have, great relationships. We talk a lot, and everybody there is pretty happy.
I got to ask you, how did you find out about this press conference? Because we in the media section, we were told by Jeff directly, And obviously Jeff has his number on the Pro Fighters Association website. Were you one of those fighters that reached out to him and contacted him?
No, it was not. I've been in contact with the MMAFA. I'm interested in everything that goes on. It's all union-based. It's all good for our organization, for our sport. It's all good. So I think that the fact we can get someplace and have these conversations is fantastic. So, I mean, like, I'm not married to anybody, in life or in sport, and I feel that that's the biggest part. Like, I need to shop around. I need to see what people have to say for themselves, and see if for myself, I can make an educated decision on who I find trustworthy and genuine.
While you're shopping around and sort of having a look, obviously a lot of topics were covered at this press conference. What was the biggest one that stood out? What was something that really stood out to you that you found interesting and maybe piqued your interest?
Well, I mean, obviously for me, it was the retired guys, right? Like, they're going to come in, they're going to start from this point going forwards. Well, the guys that have the most influence are the guys that have 15, 20 fights in the UFC, have a lot of leverage in the UFC, and I think that might be a misstep on their part. I think that needs to be, hey, look, from the very jump, we need to say that as soon as we get in there, we're going to fight for everybody's back time and say, look, you have this many fights in here, you got this protected, it's going to be covered, you're going to have some form of something going forwards. So that way the older guys that are in there that have the influence have more skin in the game to say, look, man, this is some serious shit here. We need to all talk about it. Hey, young bucks at the gym, let's sit down and talk about this, and there's the reason why. Because otherwise, all that they've done to get the sport to become sexy is forgotten about. It's not acknowledged. And I think that's kind of a misstep, at least from what I heard.
So let's talk about what happened today. You had a brief conversation with Jeff before. What did you think of the way he handled himself? What did you think of the things that he said? Do you trust him anymore? Do you believe in this potential anymore? What did you take away from it?
I don't know. I don't know. I still have to think about it. I have some initial first impressions, and I just need to go home, talk with my guy Andy, talk with Andy about it for a little bit, and see what Andy's impression was and how he feels. And I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot to gain from this from everybody. I just hope that I hope it works out.
Because there was that point during, and you mentioned it before, where you want everybody to get along, and you wondered why Jeff hadn't reached out. Do you think that's something that sort of needs to be overcome? He mentioned there was some negative stuff said about the organization here, but do you think, you mentioned that everybody needs to come together, but would you like to see Jeff overcome this situation, get in contact with these people, and not sort of see these two association I
think that would speak volumes.
Yeah.
I think that would, and I think that anybody paid attention to it that has the same kind of sentiment I would be like, well, if he's really doing this here, that's a hell of an olive branch, and I think that he's really trying to reach out big. We need this for the greater good, and we can talk about everything else later, or debate it, or whatever. But I would think that would be a hell of a step.
Okay, great. And is there a way fans will be able to find out whether or not you decide to support the organization? Will you be going on social media, letting people know? Is there any kind of update that you'll give people once you make a decision?
I have no clue. I haven't thought enough about it. I'm doing this for me and for the sport, right? So as soon as I get an opinion and I feel it's educated enough, I'll probably let it know to somebody else ask about it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Matt.
Appreciate it, man.